My name is Sophia, and I used to laugh at urban legends, ghostly figures in subway tunnels, cursed buildings, all those stories people tell to scare kids. I've always been practical, looking for logic in everything. But after what happened in that crumbling apartment block on Wynn Street, I can't sleep without a light on anymore. If you're watching this, please listen. There are places you should never go, no matter how ordinary they seem. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed. I moved to this city a year ago, desperate for a fresh start after college. I was 24, a freelance graphic designer barely making ends meet. And this gray, decaying city was all I could afford. The streets smelled of damp concrete and rust. The buildings hunched under a sky that always threatened rain. I found a cheap apartment in a 9-story Soviet-era block on Wynn Street. It was the kind of place you'd barely notice. Faded gray panels, cracked windows, an elevator that groaned like it was alive. The hallways reeked of mildew, the walls stained with years of neglect. The rent was so low it felt suspicious, but all I needed was a quiet place to work and sleep. Apartment 47 on the 8th floor became my home. From the start, the building felt wrong. The neighbors were like ghosts, slipping past me in the hallways with their eyes down, avoiding me like I carried a curse. No hellos, no smiles, just silence that made my skin crawl. The only person who spoke to me was Elena Ivanovna, the old woman in apartment 48. She was tiny, with sharp gray eyes that seemed to see into your soul. One evening, as I fumbled with my keys by the mailbox, she grabbed my arm, her cold fingers digging into my skin. "Don't linger on the 8th floor, Sophia," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not after dark." "It's not safe," I forced a nervous smile, thinking she was just superstitious. "It's just an old building," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted. She didn't let go. "They listen," she hissed, "and they don't like strangers." Her words clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. The first month was quiet, but then the strangeness began. It started with the elevator. No matter where I was going, up to the 9th floor, down to the lobby, it always stopped on the 8th floor. The doors would creak open, revealing a long, dim corridor with peeling wallpaper and a single fluorescent bulb flickering like it was dying. The air was always colder there, heavier, like it was pressing against me. I'd hold my breath, waiting for the doors to close, telling myself it was just faulty wiring. But one night, coming home late from a client meeting, the elevator stopped again, and I heard something, a faint shuffling, like someone dragging their feet across the concrete. My heart raced as I pressed myself against the back wall, staring into the empty corridor. Nothing, just shadows and a cold draft that made my breath catch. I jabbed the close door button, my hands trembling, until the elevator lurched upward. Then the intercom call started, always in the dead of night. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., sometimes 4. The shrill buzz would jolt me awake, my heart pounding, as I stumbled to the receiver. I'd pick it up, and there'd be nothing. No voice, no static, just silence that felt alive, like it was watching me. Sometimes I'd hear a faint exhale, like someone was standing outside, breathing into the intercom. I checked the entrance camera every time, empty. The street was deserted, the lobby dark. I asked my neighbors if they'd gotten similar calls, but they just shook their heads and hurried away. Elena Ivanovna was the only one who answered. "Don't pick up," she whispered, her eyes darting to the shadows. "They're testing you. They want to know if you're listening." I tried to brush it off. Old buildings have quirks, right? Creaky pipes, bad wiring, maybe kids playing pranks. But the more I told myself that, the less I believed it. I started lying awake at night, my apartment feeling less like a home and more like a trap. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows too sharp. My mom always told me to trust my intuition, that gut feeling when something's wrong, and my intuition was screaming at me to leave. Then I found the box. It was late. After another sleepless night, the city's faint hum seeping through my window, I opened my door to take out the trash, and there it was, a battered cardboard box stained with what looked like water damage, sitting right outside my door. My stomach twisted as I stared at it, half expecting it to move. I brought it inside, my hand shaking. Inside was an old film camera, heavy and cold, its lens scratched and foggy, like it hadn't been touched in decades. Tucked beside it was a folded piece of paper, the handwriting jagged and uneven. "Photograph the 8th floor at midnight. You'll see no signature, no explanation." I thought it might be a prank, but the weight of the camera, the musty smell of the box, it felt wrong, like it didn't belong here. Curiosity got the better of me, though I hated myself for it. I called a friend, Katya, who ran a photography shop, and she found a roll of black and white film for the ancient camera. "Going retro, huh?" she teased, but her voice faltered when she held the camera, like it gave her the creeps. That night, at midnight, I stood in the 8th floor corridor, the camera heavy in my trembling hands. The air was thick, the silence so oppressive it felt like a weight on my chest. I snapped 3 photos, aiming down the corridor toward the dark end where the light barely reached. The shutter's click echoed like a gunshot in the stillness. I didn't wait to see if anything was there. I ran back to my apartment, locked the door, and hid the camera under my bed, my heart pounding so hard. I could barely breathe. It took 2 days to muster the courage to develop the film. Katya did it for me, and when she handed me the prints, her face was pale. "Sophia, what is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. I looked at the photos and felt my stomach drop. The corridor wasn't the one I knew. The light was reddish like a dying ember, and the walls were cracked and decayed, as if abandoned for decades. At the far end of the corridor, in every photo, was a figure, tall, hunched, with arms so long they nearly touched the floor. It had no face, just a smooth, dark void where a face should be. In the 3rd photo, it was closer, its head tilted, as if staring straight at me. I stuffed the photos into my bag and left the shop, my legs weak, promising myself I'd never touch that camera again. I showed the pictures to Elena Ivanovna, hoping she'd tell me it was a trick of the light. Instead, she grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. "You've seen them," she hissed, her eyes wide with fear. Now they know you can see. She told me a story that made my blood run cold. In the early 90s, a family lived in apartment 46, right next to mine. A mother, father, and their teenage daughter, Masha. They were quiet, kept to themselves, but one night the neighbors heard screams, horrible, gut-wrenching screams that stopped as suddenly as they started. The next morning, the family was gone. No bodies, no blood, no signs of a struggle. The police searched for weeks, but found nothing. The official report said they'd moved away, but no one believed it. Neighbors whispered about shadows in the windows of the empty apartment, footsteps in the corridor at night, and intercom calls with no one on the other end. The 8th floor became a place people avoided. Tenants moved out, and those who stayed never spoke of it. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, the photos hidden in a drawer, but the image of that faceless figure haunted me. The camera sat on my kitchen table, and I swear it felt like it was watching me. I called Katya again, telling her about the photos and Elena Ivanovna's story. "Sophia, this isn't normal," she said, her voice full of worry. "Get out of there." Something's wrong with that place. I wanted to agree, but I admitted I couldn't just leave. Something was pulling me to figure it out. Katya sighed. "You've always been too curious. It's going to get you in trouble." Her words echoed in my head, but I couldn't stop. I started researching the building online, digging through old forms and news archives. Most of what I found was mundane. Complaints about leaky pipes, power outages, but one post, buried in a defunct message board, stopped me cold. It was from someone claiming to have lived on the 8th floor in the 90s. They wrote about hearing whispers in the walls, seeing shadows that moved when no one was there. "They know your name," the post said. "If you hear them, don't answer." The account was deleted, and the post was time-stamped just days before the family in 46 disappeared. The next night, the intercom buzzed again, 3:07 a.m. I didn't answer, but the buzzing didn't stop. It went on for 10 minutes, relentless, until I yanked the receiver off the wall. The silence that followed was worse, heavy and suffocating. Then I heard it, a faint scratching, like nails dragging across the outside of my door. I grabbed a kitchen knife and stood frozen, staring at the door, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The scratching stopped, but I didn't dare open it. I spent the night curled up on the couch, the knife in my hand, jumping at every creak. My mom's voice echoed in my head. "Trust your intuition, Sophia." I should have listened from the start. The next morning, I found something that made my heart stop. In my mailbox, among the usual bills and flyers, was an envelope with no address, no stamp, just my name scrawled in shaky, childish handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, yellowed and crinkled, like it had been torn from an old notebook. The writing was uneven, smudged in places. "Sophia, don't look at her. She knows you're here. She wants you to follow, like she wanted me." Masha. My knees buckled. Masha, the girl from apartment 46, the one who disappeared with her family. How could this be real? I checked the mailbox again, hoping for some explanation, but it was empty. The envelope felt too cold, too heavy for a single sheet of paper. I locked it in the drawer with the photos, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Was someone playing a cruel joke, or was it something worse? My intuition screamed it was the latter. I started seeing things, or maybe I was just losing it. Every shadow in my apartment seemed to move. Just out of the corner of my eye, I avoided the bathroom mirror, terrified of what I might see. One night, I couldn't help it. I glanced at my reflection while brushing my teeth. For a split second, I saw something, a flicker of movement, like a shadow passing behind me. I spun around, my heart racing, but the room was empty. The air was colder than it should have been, and I thought I heard a faint hum, like the one in the corridor. I covered the mirror with a towel after that, but the feeling of being watched never left. It was like the apartment itself was alive, waiting for me to slip up. I couldn't take it anymore. Elena Ivanovna had mentioned apartment 46, the one where the family disappeared. It had been empty for years, the door locked with a rusted padlock, the windows boarded up. But I'd noticed the padlock was loose, like someone had been inside recently. Against every instinct screaming at me to leave it alone, I decided to investigate. I waited until midnight, armed with the camera, a flashlight, and my knife. The corridor was darker than usual, the fluorescent bulb barely flickering. I approached apartment 46, my hands trembling as I tested the padlock. It fell open with a soft click, as if it had been waiting for me. The door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing a pitch-black interior. The air was cold, thick with the smell of mildew and something metallic, like old blood. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating a small living room frozen in time. Dusty furniture, a cracked mirror on the wall, a child's drawing pinned to a corkboard, a crude sketch of a family, but the faces were scribbled out in black ink, as if someone had tried to erase them. My stomach twisted as I stepped further inside. The floorboards groaned under my weight, and a low, guttural hum started, like a chorus of voices trapped in the walls. I found a wooden box in the corner, covered in dust, its lid warped with age. Inside was a diary, its pages yellowed and smelling of dampness. The handwriting was small, childish, belonging to Masha, the daughter of the family. I flipped through the pages, my heart racing. The early entries were innocent, notes about school, complaints about the gloomy apartment, but the later ones grew frantic. "Something's in the walls," Masha wrote. "I hear it at night, whispering my name. Mama says it's just the wind, but it's not. It knows me." Another entry read, "I saw her last night. She's tall, with no face, and her arms are too long. She stands in the corner of my room, watching. I'm scared." The final entry was scrawled in shaky letters. "She wants me to go with her. I don't want to, but she keeps calling. I think she's here now." The diary ended there, the last page smeared with something dark, like ink or blood. I dropped the diary, my hand shaking. The hum grew louder, forming a single word. Sophia. My name, spoken in a voice that wasn't human, echoing from the back of the apartment. I swung my flashlight toward the sound, and my beam caught something in the hallway, a tall, hunched shape. its long arms swaying. Its faceless head was tilted, and I swear it was looking at me. I stumbled back, tripping over a chair, and the figure twitched like a puppet jerked by invisible strings. Then I heard it, a soft, eerie voice like a child's, singing a lullaby my mom used to sing to me when I was little. The words were wrong, twisted, like they were being sung through a throat that wasn't human. I ran, slamming the door behind me, and sprinted to my apartment, locking myself inside. The whispering followed, seeping through the walls, chanting my name over and over. The next morning, I developed the photo I'd taken in apartment 46. The room was there, but it was wrong. Walls covered in claw marks, the mirror shattered, the child's drawing replaced with a black smear. The figure was in the center, its arms outstretched, its faceless head tilted toward the camera. In the corner of the photo, barely visible, was another shape, smaller, like a child, its face scribbled out like the drawing on the corkboard. I packed my bags that morning, my hands shaking so badly I could barely zip them up. I went to Elena Ivanovna's apartment, my voice trembling as I told her everything, the photos, the diary, the letter. She didn't look surprised, just exhausted. She pressed an old silver cross into my hand and said, "Leave, Sophia. Leave now, and don't look back. They've marked you." I drove out of the city that day, the cross hanging from my rearview mirror. I'm in a new place now, far from Wind Street. I don't answer intercoms anymore. I don't live in old buildings, but sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, I hear it, the whisper, faint but unmistakable, calling my name. Sometimes it's not just my name, it's that lullaby sung in a child's voice twisting through the darkness. I keep the photos, the diary, and the letter locked in a box, but I can't bring myself to destroy them. I'm terrified that one day I'll wake up to find that figure standing at the foot of my bed, its long arms reaching for me, or worse, Masha, her face scribbled out, singing that lullaby, calling me to follow her. If you're watching this, don't make my mistake. Don't be curious. Don't open doors you're not supposed to open. Don't read letters that shouldn't exist. Don't photograph things you're not meant to see. Because once you do, they see you too, and they never forget.